service. He brings with him extensive experience in public administration, policy formulation and governance, and will be sharing the government's vision of strengthening connectivity infrastructure and sustainability. And ladies and gentlemen, guiding this timely important conversation, we are honored to welcome a seasoned media professional, Ms. Charanjit Lale, former BBC senior broadcast journalist and Bloomberg News anchor, as our distinguished moderator for this session. A familiar face on Global News Channel, Charanjit has brought you the news from Asia on BBC World News and Bloomberg TV for a quarter of a century. Has interviewed many of the world's top political and business leaders, keeping audiences engaged and entertained with conversations taking place on stage or online. She's moderated discussions at some of the world's most high-profile events at the United Nations, the ADB, and other global summits, and also for the corporate world. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our distinguished speakers and moderator on the stage.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sapna. And namaskar, it's wonderful to be here in dynamic Delhi. How fantastic. And as Sapna just said, I have the great privilege of speaking to two key figures in aviation in India, two key leaders. And we're going to have a conversation over the next half hour talking about how to make India a true leader in global aviation. We know it already has made so many strides. I'm amazed to hear about that extraordinary figure of doubling the number of airports in this country in the last decade. Not many countries in the world are able to achieve that. So let's delve further into this question on whether India can become a leader in global aviation. So let's start with that question to you, both of these gentlemen. You're both key leaders in the industry. Do you believe India can become a leader in global aviation? Just a quick yes or no, just at the very start.
Yes.
Double yes. Double yes. Okay, I like that. Fantastic. So let's find out how to enable that to be the case. It's a grand ambition. Can India fulfill those ambitions? Because we know it has these extraordinary leaders in charge. So let's begin with you, Mr. Kishore, because I want to congratulate you, obviously, at your appointment as president of ACI, of course, one of the key organizers who have brought this conference together, the president of ACI for the Asia Pacific and the Middle East. How do you envision your leadership shaping the region's airport industry and enabling India to become this global leader in aviation?
Thank you, Charanjit. As I mentioned, it's a real pleasure and privilege to head the Asia Pacific region, which is one of the most dynamic and the fastest growing regions in the aviation industry. The testimony of that is the participation of all the senior leaders from various airports across the Asia Pacific region. And also, as I mentioned in today's address, yesterday we had a very elaborate, detailed interaction as to what should be our focus areas. So topmost is to enhance the connectivity, to further the growth. As Mr. Stefano has presented, Asia Pacific would be on the top of the growth charts. So as ACI, we want to ensure that whatever other projections we further cross them and make the most of it. Second is the focus on sustainability, working with the states, the governments of various countries, especially the ensuring ICAO assembly, which has a lot of discussions on sustainability, what the aviation industry can do. I think ACI is very, very particular, and India is one of the very, what I should say, active participants in the ICAO delegation. So that is second thing. Third, and the most important thing is how do we focus on new designs, new technologies, innovations to ensure that the experience of airports is of topmost quality, and also see that the costs are optimized so that we ensure that passengers, customers of the airport aviation ecosystem will not feel the pinch of the cost. So I think these are 3-4 things apart from creating the talent pipelines.
Absolutely, and as Chief Innovation Officer at GMR, you're very much got the pulse of the innovative techniques that are going to be implemented in this industry. Now, Secretary Vualnam, I'll move to you because obviously we've talked about how India, and we heard your wonderful opening speech this morning about how India is aiming to become really a global hub for aviation. So could you provide insights on some of the key policy initiatives that the government is implementing to support the industry and enable it to become indeed a global leader?
Thank you. You know, one of the reasons why we are really excited about the potential of the Indian aviation is really the aspiration for air travel that has now been generated and created in the length and breadth of the country. You know, so our starting point is what our DG ACI had presented. Our air trips per capita per annum is just 0.13. But the excitement and the enthusiasm which has come is because now in all corners of the country, the people are now aspiring to travel by air. They have started traveling by air. They have seen the benefits of air travel. You know, they have broken through into becoming air travelers. And the 0.13 is in fact a source of even more optimism because you multiply it by 2 or multiply it by 3 times, it just shows the potential that is there. And all this, we believe, has been created. You know, the Honorable Prime Minister of India was very keen on regional connectivity, regional air connectivity. So, about 8 years back, a scheme called the RCS Udan initiative was started. It's a regional connectivity scheme. So, it's connecting our Tier 2, Tier 3 cities. It is providing air connectivity to those small locations. And in this last 8-9 years, 600 routes have been created, which would not have happened otherwise had this initiative not been there. And more important than the numbers is that we are finding in all corners of the country, people would now like to have air connectivity and would like to travel by air. And with the growing middle class, middle income group, we are confident that a very strong foundation for civil aviation has been created in this country, and it will move on.
That is an extraordinary number, 600 new routes being established in the last number of years. That is staggering. So give us a sense, Mr. Kishore, of what GMR and other Indian airport operators are doing to try to become more globally competitive. What are some of the key strategies you are putting in place?
So before I respond to this particular query of yours, let me also, because what the Honorable Secretary has mentioned is the impact of the policies which government has done. But what actually they have done, because I was one of the beneficiaries of their policies, I think India especially has been very, very progressive in recognizing the potential of the aviation industry. In fact, many of my global colleagues were asking that, do you really have a separate ministry for civil aviation? Because generally it comes under the transport. But I think India is one country where really almost 2 decades back, I think more than that, we had a separate ministry for civil aviation. I think we have been a pioneer in developing the public-private partnership frameworks. Because the demand was already there, was always there. But to ensure that lack of supply will not convert the demand into reality. I think that is where I think kudos to Government of India. Very stable policies related to PPP frameworks, regulatory consistency they have brought in the last 10-15 years. Stefano was mentioning about the different types of deal and all. We had a lot of consultations and we decided it will be a hybrid deal, keeping in the interest of the government, public, the users, and the airport listing. So, also the regulatory consistency has played a major role in bringing in global investments into India. And the very fact that the number of airports have doubled, and in fact, Honorable Secretary was mentioning that they want to privatize more and more airports, and there is developing a global appetite. I think that has really, what I should say is, unlike a typical bureaucracy, the Indian ministries, especially the civil aviation ministry, has been very, very proactive in consultations. Any industry representations, they take a holistic view and they are very, very investor friendly, industry friendly. I think all these things, last 2 decades of the civil aviation journey in India, I am very confident. Why did I say double S? Because whatever linear projections, what we have made, I'm sure we will have an exponential growth with the proactive policies and support from the government. So that is, I just wanted to add to what Secretary has mentioned. And that has given, what I should say, sown the seeds for Indian developers to become a big, major global players. Like GMR, when we first bid for the Hyderabad airport, we were not in the aviation industry. We were like a startup at that time. Very innovative, we brought in new designs, bring in global partnerships, and the testimony of that is the new generation terminals which have come in Hyderabad, Delhi, and later by other public-private operators, and also the airport authority is now benchmarking and they have developed their own system. So the benefits of the privatization, I say the public-private policy has really, we have witnessed that. And that has given a launch pad for players like GMR to go globally. So we take pride that not only in India, but in Southeast Asia, in Europe, we have been developing partnerships, we have been developing and operating airports. And as the minister, honorable minister said, now we are one of the top airport group developers. And again, the focus is not just on creating infrastructure, but also focusing on end user experience, focus on bringing in technology innovations, focus on ensuring that the passenger experience at the core, looking into the adjacencies, developing the cargo, travel, retail, duty free. We have created an aerospace park in Hyderabad airport where we have the MROs and the other logistics. So we brought in the first concept of the Aero Cities, which can create impact on socio-economic development. I think all thanks to the government policies here, which has made Indian developers to go globally. And I'm sure that in the coming years we'll be listening more about the Indian operators going forward.
Indeed, and it's so gratifying to hear all of those ambitions in place. Now, Mr. Kishore, you mentioned the exponential growth, and of course we heard from Secretary Vualnam about the untapped potential of growth here in India, which is enormous. It has a massive population, the world's most populous, and many of the young people today are going to be tomorrow's global travelers. So my question next is, what about those things that are outside your control? Yes, India has incredible growth potential, but there is a global trade war happening right now, and there's a lot of geopolitics that might scupper global growth in the next couple of years and potentially impact India's ambitions as a global aviation leader. So how do you respond to some of the issues that we're facing outside, externally from India?
What I have seen is that the various stakeholders, especially in the, let's talk specific aviation sector, have shown a resilience in the last, let us say, 5 years or 10 years, which is really a source of confidence that we have a set of stakeholders who are able to address whatever challenges that may come up. So we have a very resilient kind of team that we have, and I'm talking not the government but the entire aviation stakeholders who are involved. And on our part, the government in a wider sense overall really looks itself, as also mentioned briefly, providing a stable regulatory framework, being a committed partner in any international collaborations and interactions, providing a stable framework, a stable approach to any policy, and that, I believe, then gives the confidence for industry, for business to overcome whatever that it faces. And to get down a bit more specific, in fact, I had a brief discussion with one of our major Indian carriers, and the stars are aligned in such a way, it hardly has any impact on them, you know. So, so let me not get deeper, but it's a very, probably there's something beautiful there.
Good to hear that the stars are aligned there, but obviously there are lots of concerns, and yet here we are as an industry listening in to what might come next. What are some of the challenges that exist in this industry that will need to be overcome? So just a quick sense of what do you think needs to be mitigated in terms of the challenges out there? What should we be looking at in the short term? And how can India overcome these?
You know, as a region, in fact, Asia Pacific especially, it's a region where the yields for the airlines are very low. In fact, globally, if we compare with the other regions, it's one of the regions where the yield is very low. So for the airlines, it's a sort of tight market. They are growing, they are very happy, but still it's a tight market. Even if we look at specific to the Indian market, you know, everyone can cite several Indian carriers which have had to discontinue services. So that remains a challenge, because on one side the expectation of the traveling public on airfares and these issues are there, and the airlines, the financial viability. So that remains a challenge. But I think especially the theme or the objective which our Airports Council International has on promoting the excellence, promoting innovative solutions to any issues, I think that is really something that can help us overcome these things. So the financial viability is something that definitely is in our mind, and of course the instability which happens every now and then, the incidents which happen, the rules which are get affected. So that is something there. But again, I think we have the resilience to overcome all that. And on our part, we are really looking at supporting the ecosystem as a whole. So, for instance, very closely linked are the MRO facilities. How do we improve on that? How do we make it more streamlined? How do we make it more economic for the airlines to get their MRO work done? It's something that we are very much focused on, and very promising for the group involved in airport development is what we find is that with the kind of growth, with the kind of potential, our state governments have now become very active partners in this. So, and the land, which is a very major aspect in any major airport, and where land is a domain with the provincial government, the state government, we find that they have become very proactive. The chief ministers are willing to get into discussions, try and understand, provide larger parcels of land. So I think that is something very promising for anyone who is looking at investing in airports in India, that not just the central government, the federal government in the Ministry of Civil Aviation, but our very important partners at the state level have become very active and open to discussions on the airport development. They have seen the economic development potential, the employment potential, and the overall impact on development of that entire region. For example, I mentioned about the Noida airport, which is still not operational. We are expecting very shortly, but the kind of impact which is already having in the surrounding areas, you know, the developmental impact. So a very promising kind of ecosystem that has come up.
That's right, and I recall your words this morning. By the end of today, we might have 160 airports here in India. And Mr. Kishore, as well, some of your words this morning, how airports are really a mirror to the socio-economic landscape of a country. Really fascinating words there. I guess my next area of concern is sustainability. That is something that keeps coming up. You've talked about it, Mr. Kishore, the need for sustainability, the need for India and other countries to hit their net zero targets, which is so crucial. So talk us through the environmental sustainability ambitions of GMR airports and Indian airports. How do you aim to achieve that?
Before I get into sustainability, just wanted to add to what Secretary has mentioned regarding the challenges. like about the lower yields of the airlines. So globally, that is what we discuss in the ACI as well. Smart airlines are making lots of money. And generally, when we talk about lower yields, the airport charges is the one which is getting focused. So again, I want to tell, in the entire cost stack of the airlines, it is only 5%. I think Secretary has rightly mentioned the MRO charges and the fuel charges are eating into a lot of the cost of the airlines. And today, if you see, even in India, the largest two airlines are really doing well, right? And globally also, US and all. So smart business models, and we as ACI, we want to collaborate with the entire stakeholders to see that the costs are brought down. So that is where technology innovation we have been focusing. As I was mentioning yesterday also, we spent a lot of time on how do we extract more capacities out of the existing infrastructure without compromising on passenger experience. One thing what we want to tell you is, in the last decade, if you see, most of the check-in processes have come outside the terminal. Be it taking boarding cards, bag drops. So maybe the new designs, you don't have any check-in concourse set up, so that will bring down the cost. It is only the security screening and then boarding. So a lot of new designs we are looking into it as a responsible body of airports. While we only contribute to 5% of the cost of the entire airline this thing, but we still want to see how we can further minimize it. So that is one focus where we are trying to look at new designs, new technologies, new innovations, so that non-intrusive ways seamlessly, throughput increases, passenger experience doesn't come down, so we want to do a bit. But I think if you really want to ensure that the cost to the passenger is minimized, I think we should really look into the business model of the airlines, because they are not regulated, whereas we are regulated. So we just get a fixed return on the investments what we make as an airport. And the models may slightly, regulatory models may slightly vary from one country to the other country, but it's mostly, that is what it is. So I think like one major intervention the Government of India is doing is to get into the value chain of the entire airline. MRO is one big cost which they are trying to bring in, because hitherto all the Indian carriers used to fly abroad to get the periodical checks. So now we have developed ecosystems within India, and we are very happy to say that even the engine MRO, the Saffron has come to India due to the joint efforts of private players and the government, and they are putting one of the largest facility in Hyderabad, in the aerospace park, almost 500 engines capacity. So we are bringing in all the systems into India so that the cost of the airlines will come down. There is also a great effort from the government to reduce the VAT on the aviation terminal fuel, because that is another major cost. So it's a joint effort which we are making, and as ACI, as airport developers, we promise and assure that we will do our bit to bring down the cost. So that's number one point what I just wanted to add to what Secretary has mentioned. And regarding sustainability, that's a big responsibility on every industry player, especially as an airport developer operator. Even the airlines has a major say in getting this sustainability focus. But as airports, Indian airports, especially the PPP players, we have taken it onto ourselves as a responsible corporate how we will be eco-friendly. So I can give examples of Hyderabad, Delhi, and also other airports like Cochin, Bangalore, etc., where we have gone for renewable power, solar power. We have brought in the best waste management practices. In Hyderabad, we don't depend on, very little dependence on the public utility for water. We have our own water harvesting structures. We import rainwater, we treat it, we use it for our landscape, we use it for our terminal. Similar things are being done in Cochin and other airports. So one is, how do we reduce our dependency on public utilities? Be it power, be it water, be it waste management. And then, of course, ACI has come out with a very scientific way of ensuring airports undertake this net carbon zero journey. So we have the Airport Carbon Accreditation Program, which is advocated by ACI World, and ACI Europe has been successful in instilling that program in various members of ACI Europe. And now Asia Pacific, we have taken that decision that there will be a lot of focus on sustainability. We want all the member airports to take the pledge of wedding themselves to the sustainability journey. And then again, I want to acknowledge Government India has been very, very proactive to ensure that the civil aviation industry will reach net carbon zero by 2040, I think, if I am not wrong, and mid 2027, and many of our airports now 2070, and many of our airports now have graduated in the airport carbon accreditation program to level 5. I think Delhi is there, Mumbai is there, Bangalore is there, and today Hyderabad is getting recognized as level 5 airport.
That's right, we'll be having the awards later.
As PPP players, as airport operator developers, as a state, India state, we are all wedded for the sustainability case. And Asia Pacific, this is the main focus.
Fascinating. And Secretary Vualnam, just heard you say, obviously, it's 2070, that's when the target aims to be achieved. How far do you think India has come towards enabling the achievement of that target? And talk us through some of the policies and regulations over things like sustainable aviation fuel, for instance. How is the Indian government trying to push on these very sustainable practices?
Yeah. India as a country has been part of the sustainability discussions in the aviation sector, and we are committed to remain a reliable partner in that aspect. And one of the first things we have done is, at our own initiative, the Ministry of Civil Aviation had issued an advisory to the airports here in India that the energy that they utilize should be from renewable sources. And the happy news is that 80 of our major airports today source their entire energy requirements from renewable sources. So it's a very good initiative that our Indian airports have taken. Then on the sustainable aviation fuel, we are part of the ICAO Corsia discussions. The mandatory phase will kick in from 2027. We are part of that. The blending of the fuels will start. We are all part of that. We are committed to that. And on our part, along with the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, in fact, the Ministry of Petroleum has already mandated the Indian oil companies that they have to start blending from 2027. So the mandate has been issued. It starts with 1% blending, goes up to 2% the next year, and 5% after 5 years by 2030. And we will move on. And also to sort of see that technically we are all ready. Many of our flights are already have been tried on blended SAF fuels. The aircraft which come in from France, for example, the ferry flights use blended fuel. So it's already technically sort of tried and tested and confirmed. So we are very much ready for that. And our airports are also getting ready, and I think I will end with that. I think it's something that the family of airport companies and operators can discuss on the SAF related facilities that are required in our various airports. We will be very eager to hear and discuss and learn more, so that the usual ATF and the blended ATF, how everything moves very smoothly, and while maintaining our commitments to the sustainability, that we also see that it's done in the most efficient way. So something that we are very much committed to.
That's wonderful to hear. Now we've just got a few more minutes left, in fact, so I'm going to try to squeeze as much as I can in our last few minutes. And fascinating to hear the strides that are being taken in the aviation industry. Mr. Kishore, earlier you spoke about the innovations, and we've heard about Digi Yatra and a few other new innovations being implemented. But I guess my final question to both you gentlemen is, where will we be 20 years from now? If I were a passenger coming to India, coming to Delhi, how is my experience going to have been transformed by some of the innovations and the strides that India is making to enable a seamless experience for international passengers? So give us a sense very quickly, in 20 years, how will my experience as a passenger flying into Delhi airport be different? Starting with you, Mr. Kishore.
Let let me answer this, and then the Secretary has the final statement for today's discussion. So I think the way emerging technologies are coming into fore, especially with AI, ML, IoT, generative AI, I think, and the immersive experiences which the new technologies are coming. I think the aviation industry was slightly lagging behind because it was controlled by few IT players. Now it's slowly opening up with the initiatives of various airports and airlines. We are bringing in new startups. In fact, in GMR, we have started our open innovation platform called GMR Innovex, which we started 3 years back. We also have an understanding with the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security to come out with new products, new solutions using emerging technologies. We have an understanding with leading airline Indigo on working together, because aviation is a complex ecosystem and all the stakeholders should work together to come out with certain interventions. So it cannot be done by airlines alone or airports alone or the ground handlers. So we are trying to build a consortium of stakeholders. And that's why we said it's an open innovation platform. And then, as you said, 20 years down the line, it will be very difficult. As I mentioned, maybe the way the airport terminals look will be totally different. Right? There will not be any concourses of check-in and all those things. With the vertical unmanned vehicles coming in, so vertiports will be the order of the day. So people just register their bags in the city and they take the Volvo copters or whatever it is to come to the airports. Maybe they just pass in. And the new technology is where there is no frisking and so you just seamlessly pass through a corridor where you will be scanned. And with the predictive intelligence, what will be happening, because now there is a move, like Government of India started this trusted travel program. So you have all the biometrics in advance. And also your antecedents. So now there is a move to merge the aviation database with the crime records bureau, so that we know the antecedents of a passenger, whether it needs any further scanning and screening. So default this thing. Then now the facial analytics, the video analytics has gone into such a advanced stage without being intrusive. You can, from the facial behavior and the body behavior, you can find out whether there is any suspicious individual moving around, whether someone is under stress, whether someone is happy, and you can home on to those individuals where because airport terminals will have a large number of footfalls, right, and different types of people. So you can get into those personalized focus. If someone is moving suspiciously, the security forces can just go to him and take him aside, him or her aside. If someone is seeking for help, need not reach out through your social media. Just by the facial analytics, the airport or the airline customer service people can go and approach them and say. So these are some of the biggest ammunition which we will be developing through digital technologies and the big data. What we do. So today, aviation is the repository of big data. We are really not leveraging the strength of data. So all these things will happen. So I think it will be very, very personalized, very, very pleasant, and very, very, what I should say, incisive insights into the behavior of the passengers, processes being very proactive rather than reactive. I think it will be a very good experience, and bringing down the costs, enhancing efficiencies, and making common people fly. No longer it will be like the minister was saying, it is no longer a luxury mode of transport, but it is a common mode of transport. I think these are the changes which we will be seeing in the aviation.
That's a great ambition 20 years from now. I'm saying time's up, so Secretary Vualnam, you will have the last word on this. In 20 years, how will the airports here in India have transformed?
I think what would happen very soon is the types of aircraft that we have will expand quite a bit. So besides what we already see and know, the advanced air mobility is moving very fast. The eVTOLs within that is the electric vertical takeoff and landing type of aircraft. I believe in a couple of years it will just appear everywhere. So and of course the drones which are already there will just increase in numbers. So the point I'm making is the flying objects. in our airspace, I believe would increase tremendously in the coming, not even far over 20 years, maybe even in 5 years' time. It will be a very different kind of airspace that we will have, and on that, I think the air traffic management, from the drone level to the eVTOLs, to the helicopters, then the smaller aircraft, to the bigger aircraft, how we handle it all smoothly and together, I think is something again which a forum like this and other suitable forums, ICAO and all, can very sort of productively discuss in the coming times. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I guess at this point, a big round of applause for both our very esteemed speakers. As mentioned, key leaders in the Indian aviation industry. You have heard some deep insights from both of them on where the industry is headed here in India and beyond. Once again, please put your hands together and thank our wonderful speakers.
Thank you very much indeed. I would request the dignitaries to kindly come together for a group photograph. A group photograph, please. And let's once again put our hands together to thank Mr. SGK Kishore, Mr. Vualnam and Ms. Sharanjeet for that insightful and engaging conversation, offering a compelling vision of India's aviation future. I would request Ms. Sharanjeet to kindly stay back for the next session. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is now time for a highly anticipated session, a one-on-one conversation with one of the most visionary leaders in the global aviation industry. We are